Chapter 15. We explore inland. The danger had passed, but my concern hadn't. What if another huge snake showed up? I saw a need for 2 expeditions, a sweep of the swamp and woods for snakes, and a visit to the gap in the rocks we thought we had fortified so well. Ernst and Jack showed no enthusiasm. I got chills every time I think of that snake's tail, Jack explained. That's why you have to come, I said. You must face what you fear, and the sooner the better. Plus, we need your eyes and gun. Bearing in mind Jack's story of getting stuck in the swamp, we used boards and wicker bundles to help us through. We found the snake's lair in the swamp, but no sign of other snakes. Going a little further onto firmer ground, we noticed clear water flowing from a cave in the rock wall. Get some torches going, I told my sons. When we had light, I peered inside. The cave was very large, pillared with stalactites, and its floor was covered with fine white dust. I knelt and rubbed a bit between my fingers. It was fuller's earth, which could substitute for soap. Your mother will be very happy. We're almost out of soap in camp, I explained. Fritz followed the streamlet back into the cave. Soon I heard him calling back to us. It gets wider, Father. Come look at this. Jack, Ernst, stay here, I ordered, and strode forward to join Fritz. Look at the walls, said Fritz. When I arrived, the torchlight reflected lovely colors from a crystalline roof onto the sides of the passage. It's another salt cave. But the water leaves no track through the crystals, I replied. Taste it. It's not salty. I think this is a cave of pure rock crystal. I fired a shot to see if anything fell from the roof. Nothing did. Then we've found a great treasure, he exclaimed. If we had anyone to trade it with, I said. Without that, it's not very useful. I'll break some off anyway, said Fritz. He cracked off a piece with the butt of his gun and then another until he found a piece that pleased him. Fritz fired a farewell shot just to hear the echoes, and out we went. Back at the entrance, poor Jack was sobbing. He threw himself into my arms. What's the matter? I asked anxiously. I thought you were lost. I heard loud noises like rocks shattering down and thought you and Fritz were buried in a rock fall. It was horrible. I explained the noises and comforted him. Where's Ernst? I asked him. Over in the reeds. He probably didn't hear the shots, but I heard him shoot something. I found Ernst busily weaving an ingenious basket shaped like a funnel to catch fish. Also, Father, I shot a big snake, he said. It's over there, almost 4 feet long. A snake, I said, hurrying in that direction in alarm. This soon turned to relief when I saw the carcass. Son, this is an eel, not a snake. It makes an excellent dinner. We made our way back to Rockburg on the firmer ground near the cliffs. When we arrived, my wife was washing clothes in the fountain. It was a good time to show her the fuller's earth. Yes, this will work, she said, testing a bit. Otherwise, we would have to start boiling our own soap soon. Over our dinner of boiled eel, we told the full story of our day. All agreed that we must continue to search for snakes in the woods of our territory between the cliffs and the sea. We began to prepare for a trip beyond Jackal River as far as the Gap. The trip might take several weeks, so we decided we should all go. The next morning we all got moving early. Jack and Franz yoked the cart to Storm and Grumble and helped their mother in, then saddled and mounted their steeds. Franz's great success with Grumble never ceased to amaze me. Fritz led on Lightfoot. Ernst and I walked. All 5 dogs, Turk, Juno, Bruno, Fawn, and Fangs, the jackal, flanked the party. On the way to Woodlands, we saw furrows in the soil where the boa had pushed off or glided through. Our path led through the beautiful clearing of Falconhurst, where we checked on the chickens, sheep, and goats before moving on. The night was falling as we reached Woodlands, which was in good order. There were no signs of great boas or mischievous apes or any other unpleasant surprise. Over breakfast in the morning, I said, First, we'll gather cotton for new pillows and cushions. In the morning, Franz and I are going exploring. My youngest began to leap for delight, and then seemed to remember that men didn't do so, and made a great effort to contain himself. Fritz smiled knowingly and gave his brother a light slap on the back. Take good care of Father, Franz, he said, and has a way of finding strange things. You won't forget what I taught you about gun safety, right? I promise, said Franz solemnly. When we had enough cotton, I summoned my youngest in the same no-nonsense way I would use with his brothers. Franz, get your gun, round up Fangs and Bruno, and let's get moving. Beaming with pride and excitement, Franz collected our escorts and came to my side. All exchanged farewells, and we were on our way. We moved slowly through the reedy thickets on the left bank of the lake, sometimes having a detour far from the water. The dogs scared up the ducks, snipe, and herons, but Franz couldn't get a good shot. He grew impatient. "Father, I could probably hit one of those swans," he said. "No, a harsh, low, booming noise interrupted me, and I paused to listen. "Father, could that be our young onager swift?" my son asked. "No," I said. I listened attentively. "It sounds like the call of a bittern, a water bird much like a heron." "Can I shoot it? But how can a bird make that sort of noise? It sounds like an ox or something." "Every bird is designed differently. Some believe that the bittern makes this odd booming noise by sticking his long bill into boggy ground." "A rare bird for my first trophy, Father. May I?" I nodded. We sent the dogs into the woods and stood ready. All at once there was a great rustling in the thicket. Franz fired, and I heard his happy voice calling out, "I've hit him! I've hit him!" "What have you hit?" I shouted. "A wild pig," he said. I soon joined my boy, who was very excited over his quarry. It was much like a pig, but not quite, for it was yellowish-gray and had no tail. It looked like a very large guinea pig. "Franz, I think this is a capybara. They normally live in South America," I said. "Hooray, I've discovered a new creature," he said. "But how can I carry it?" "Think." After a few seconds, Franz said, "We should clean it here, to make it lighter." We cut it open and cleaned it and put it in his game bag. Even so, after a while it began to slow him down. "Father, this is heavy. Do you think Bruno would let me strap it onto his back?" "Try it and see," I answered. Bruno proved cooperative, and we soon reached woodlands where Ernst was surrounded by a lot of large rat-like carcasses. "I thought you and your mother were going rice gathering, not rat hunting." "We did," answered Ernst. "While we were in the swamp, Nips jumped away to a sort of long mound and pounced on something. It tried to duck into a hole, but Nips got it by the tail. When I got there, I saw that it was a big rat, so I killed it with a stick. I decided to break open the mound. It turned out to be a big rat's nest. About a dozen came out, and I killed some, but the rest swam away. I saw similar ones close by, so I put my game bag across an entrance and hammered on the roof. A whole bunch of rats sprang out, and I caught some in the bag. I started clubbing the rest, and they fought back. What a mess! They were also trying to bite Nips, and he got a lot more bites than he gave. I was about to yell for help when Juno came dashing in. She made short work of them. Mother helped me collect these. Their skins, at least, might be useful. I asked Ernst to show me the scene. To my surprise, it was much like a beaver dam, though somewhat smaller and less complete. "These are muskrats, also called beaver rats," I said. "Notice their webbed feet and flat tails. Let's skin them to make hats." We went back to the house and met Fritz and Jack returning from their own excursion. "No snakes of any sign, Father," reported Jack. He had about a dozen eggs, and Fritz had shot a couple of grouse. We sat down to supper, Franz eager to try his capybara. Even he made a face that was at the peculiar flavor. Presently Jack remembered something and ran for his game bag. He came back with several pale green apples for our inspection. "What are those? Are they good?" I asked. "I hope so," said Jack, but Fritz and I thought we should let Professor Nip sample them first. I took one and cut it in two, and while examining one half, Nip sneaked up, grabbed a half, and hurried to munch with lively satisfaction. The boys hurried to follow suit, and I had some difficulty securing a couple for Elizabeth and myself. They tasted delicious, much like the cinnamon apples of the Antilles. "Excellent discovery, son," I complimented Jack. "Now let's get ready for bed so we can get an early start tomorrow." In the morning, we quickly ate breakfast and got going. I remembered us building a tree branch shelter between the canebrake and the gap, and told Fritz to lead us there. The shelter had held up well, so we made it our campsite. Fritz, Jack, and Franz and I went snake hunting. While we found no snakes, a trip through a sugarcane brake had its own delicious rewards. The loud barking of dogs and a great rustling soon disturbed our refreshment. We couldn't see very far in the canebrake, so I led us to the open ground where we readied our weapons and waited. In a few minutes, a herd of small, gray, pig-like creatures trotted out of the thicket. My trusty double barrel accounted for 2, and Fritz and Jack got several. The others followed their leader at a steady pace, barely stepping around their comrades' bodies. They looked like peccaries, a breed of wild pigs, which meant we must act quickly. They have scent glands that must be removed immediately, or it'll taint the meat. I told them, taking out my knife, "Watch how I do this, then get to work." Their swift action gave me hope that this large supply of meat would not be ruined. At this point, we heard shots coming from camp. Jack, find out what that was all about, then bring back the cart while we clean these. When he came back, he brought Ernst, who explained, "This same peccary troop came near camp. Juno and I got 3. Good job, son," I said. "Fritz, show him what to do. We'll have to smoke this fine supply of hams." As we loaded the peccaries into the cart, the boys struck up a song of triumph. They had done well, and they knew it. After dinner, we started the smoking process, singeing off the bristles and cutting out the meat, and the dogs gorged on tremendous portions of rejected peccary, while I salted the meat and the boys built a smoking shed and gathered green wood. This work continued into the next day, broken up only by Fritz's experiment at cooking a peccary in a ground oven. The following day, we took a trip to Prospect Hill, only to find that the apes had ravaged it as well. Animals and birds were scattered, and the cottage was a disaster. Setting things right would have to wait for another day, for we needed to press on to the gap. We closed the smoking shed up very tight, leaving the peccary meat hanging inside, and began our next march in the usual formation. In a few hours, we reached the bounds of our coastal territory, halting at a little wood just downhill of the gap. To the right of the woods and behind it rose frowning mountain cliffs. The river that rushed through the gap flowed to the left of the woods and on toward the sea. I felt this would be a good camping spot. Once we were satisfied there were no dangerous animals nearby, I ordered a general rest until evening. Tomorrow we would explore inland. In the morning, my brave wife agreed to stay behind with Franz and Juno. The 3 older boys and all the dogs went with me, as did Nips. The way through the narrow, barricaded portion of the pass was much easier than it should have been, because our barrier was mostly broken down. This was apparently the result of storm damage and flash flooding. We also saw signs that the great snake and the peccary herd had entered our territory through this narrow gorge. "Shall we fortify it again, Father?" asked Fritz. "I believe we must try," I replied. "Not today, but soon. We'll have to make the defenses twice as strong." With that, we passed into the interior. Before us lay a great plain, leading to green hills and wooded valleys with a range of tall peaks in the distance. We halted to fill our water flasks at the stream, which we named East River. It was good that we did, for the soil grew drier and drier as we headed inland. "We've crossed into Arabia," groaned Jack. "Or the Sahara Desert," groaned Ernst. "Or the Sahara Desert," sighed Jack. "It must be hell," said Fritz. "I expect to see demons any moment." "That's not funny," I scolded. "Don't be so easily discouraged. Who knows what lies ahead in those lovely mountains? I expect to find water, fresh grass, trees, and a pleasant campsite." Despite my cheery optimism, by the time we found a clump of spiny euphorbia trees, we were all grateful for some shade. I remembered from my studies that these trees exuded a poisonous sap. I cut some notches in the bark high off the ground. As we broke out our traveling rations, Nips began to snuff about in his ridiculous way, and then gave a shriek of pleasure and set off at full speed toward a valley we had passed. The dogs followed, and we decided to let the little rogue have his way while we ate lunch. When our hunger was satisfied, Fritz looked out over the plain for a moment and then exclaimed, "Do I see a party of horsemen riding towards us?" "Take the spyglass and give us a better description. We'll be on guard." He did so. "I can't quite tell," he said. "It could be wild cattle, loaded carts, or almost anything. Here, have a look," he added as he passed the glass to Jack. He and Jack looked in turn and agreed. They seemed to be men on horseback. This could be very serious. I took the glass and looked for a moment. "Those are ostriches. We must try to catch one. The feathers alone could be worth it." "If we caught one alive, Father, we could ride him." "Could we ride him?" asked Jack. "Worth a try," was my answer. "Fritz, Jack, bring back the dogs. Let's hide in the shrubs and see how close they come." The boys were gone for some time, for they found Nips and the dogs at a pool of water along a mountain stream and sensibly took time to fill their flasks before returning. When we were all together again, we leashed the dogs and waited. The ostriches came on, making no great haste, and I saw that there were only 5, 4 females and a male. To judge by the contrasting plumage, I observed, I don't see a way to catch them, except perhaps by finding Fritz's eagle. Even then, we'll have to let them get as near as possible. "How do people catch ostriches?" asked Fritz. "Sometimes on horseback, but ostriches can often outrun horses, so the rider must tire the ostrich out and then attack. Sometimes a hunter will wrap himself in an ostrich skin, putting his arms up to the neck to imitate the bird's feeding movements. This enables him to get very close, but it takes a lot of courage because ostriches can kick hard enough to maim a man. But get ready, they're almost here." As they neared, the stately birds sensed our presence and halted with uneasy steps. When nothing happened, they came closer to investigate us. The dogs broke loose and rushed the ostrich flock, which fled with the speed of the wind. In a few moments they would have been beyond our reach, but Fritz unhooded his eagle. Singling out the male bird, the eagle dove with great precision and pierced the skull to bring the magnificent creature down. Before we could reach the spot, the dogs had joined the eagle in the feast, splattering the splendid plumes of gore. Fritz spoke for all as he collected the beautiful feathers. "What a pity we couldn't capture him alive. He would probably have carried 2 of us at once." "How do ostriches survive in the desert?" asked Ernst. "On melons, wild grasses, dates, and grains," I said. "Interesting. What sound do they make?" "It's a deep, hollow, rumbling sound, so much like the roar of a lion. Wait, why's Jack waving his cap like that? I wonder what he's found." Jack ran a little way toward us, shouting, "A huge nest of ostrich eggs, Father. Come quickly." We all hurried to see. In a slight hollow lay over 20 eggs, each as large as a baby's head. The boys wanted to bring them all. "They're heavier than you think," I said. 2 will be enough. Let's cover the rest and put up a landmark so we can check on them again as we pass by." True to my warning, Jack and Ernst found their fragile burdens awkward even when slung in handkerchiefs. Remembering the clever device of Dutch milkmaids, I cut a strong, long stick and slung a handkerchief at each end. From there, Jack carried the eggs much more easily. We presently reached a marshy little watering hole. The soft ground was full of animal tracks, buffalo, antelope, and perhaps onager, but no traces of snake. We sat down to rest and eat. Our journey soon led to a charming valley dotted with graceful trees, which we named Green Valley. What a joy after our hot, dry march. We could see herds of antelope or buffalo feeding in the distance, but the dogs ranged far ahead and stampeded these out of the valley. Soon we came to open ground. I told Ernst to run ahead with Turk and look for signs of any other herds. They raced off and we lost sight of them for a few minutes. Suddenly we heard a cry of terror and then a series of violent barks and deep, surly growls. The rest of us rushed forward, meeting a white-faced Ernst. He ran to me, quivering in panic. "What is it?" I asked. "A bear's coming." "Courage, my boy," I urged. "Let's get ready for battle." The dogs dashed bravely forward as we loaded our guns. We were not long in doubt, for an enormous bear soon appeared with Turk snarling and barking at his advance. Worse yet, along came a second with leveled guns. My brave Fritz and I advanced slowly to meet them. Jack was also ready to fire, but Ernst fled. We fired together, each at one at each bear, but the monsters were only wounded. One had a broken lower jaw and the other a wounded shoulder. This was very bad. One of the few things more dangerous than a healthy, angry bear is a wounded, infuriated bear. As our dogs kept the bears occupied, I gave a quick order. "Don't take any chances of hitting a dog. If you do, the bears will tear it apart. Fritz, load your pistol. We must get very close. Jack, cover us." When the bears were fully distracted by the snapping, darting courage of our dogs, Fritz and I each advanced on a bear. As the bears began to react, we fired. I shot mine in the head, dead as he fell. Fritz's bear reared to spring on him. but a pistol bullet in his heart ended the battle. Thank heaven, I cried. That was our narrowest escape yet. The dogs continued to tear at fallen enemies, as though distrusting the appearance of death. I drew my hunting knife, and with 2 quick slashes made sure the creature would never be in a danger again. Seeing all safe, Jack raised a shout of victory to summon poor Ernst back from hiding. My frightened young intellectuals soon joined us in marveling at their mighty claws, their sharp teeth, their powerful shoulders, and the glossy white tips of the brown hair. Well, my lads, I said, we haven't found any huge snakes, but we've gotten rid of another danger. One day they would have harmed us, unless I'm much mistaken. Now what? Bearskin rugs, said Fritz. It'll take a long time to skin them, I said. Let's hide them, along with the eggs, and move camp here. We dragged the huge bodies into their den, blocking up the entry with every tree branch we could find, and buried the eggs in a sandy hole. By sunset, we returned to camp, where my wife and Franz had prepared us a hearty meal and gathered plenty of brushwood for the watch fire. We gave a full account of our adventures and then listened as Elizabeth told us what they had accomplished in our absence. She and Franz had scouted the area and discovered a bed of pure white clay, which she thought might be good for porcelain. She had made a drinking trough for the cattle from a split bamboo, then built a hearth of large stones and clay. After this, she cut us some strong canes for building material. Excellent work, dear, I said. Let's put some pieces of your clay near the fire tonight. In the morning, we'll see what we have. When this was done, we laid down for a well-earned rest. I roused my little party. At dawn, the clay had baked into a fine, hard glaze, but the heat had melted it out of shape before it hardened. Given the fine quality of the clay, it would be well worth our time to solve this problem. After breakfast and devotions, we harnessed the cart for a move to the bear's den. Fritz headed the party, and coming in sight of the cave, called out softly, "Hurry, and you'll see a whole crowd of wild turkeys. Apparently they've come for the bear's funeral, but there's a watcher out front, and he won't let them in for the viewing." Fritz's watcher was an immense condor with a sort of comb on his head and loose, fleshy skin hanging under his sharp beaks. Part of his neck was bare, wrinkled and purplish. His feet were armed with strong talons. This great bird guarded the entrance of the cave, occasionally going inside for a few minutes. When the others tried to follow, he hurried out and chased them back. "Fritz, those aren't turkeys, they're turkey vultures." As we stopped to watch the scene, a mighty rush of wings overhead startled us. We looked up. Fritz fired and brought down an enormous bird. It was a second condor, perhaps the mate of the first. We had been holding back the dogs, but now Fritz and they rushed to the cave, chasing away the vultures and the surviving condor. I entered the cave with caution, glad to see the bear carcass mostly intact. A little later, and the scavenging birds would have torn their fine skins to rags. I measured the dead condor's wingspan, 11 feet at least. We all got to work on the long job of skinning and butchering the bears. The fallen monsters provided magnificent hams, and we planned to smoke the remainder of the meat before transporting it. The paws were a delicacy, and we got a tremendous supply of bear grease, which Elizabeth began to melt and prepare for storage. The bones and remaining flesh we dragged far from the cave, a consolation prize for the birds. The turkey vultures worked so efficiently that the skulls were picked clean by the time we left, ready for us to carry home to our museum. As my sons gathered brush, I examined the brush pile and spotted a vine bearing clusters of small berries like currants. Some seemed red and ripe, others looked green. The leaves smelled spicy. "Pepper plants!" I exclaimed. My boys hurried to collect all the berries. "How do we prepare them?" asked Fritz. "Leave that to me," said my wife. "They need to soak in salt water for a few days. The unripe ones will ripen if left out. After soaking, they'll turn white, and I'll dry them in the sun. We'll have enough pepper to last us a long time, and if you collect some of the young plants, we'll plant them in Rockburg." In the process, my sons found another type of plant with bean pods and collected some to cultivate as well. We also prepared the condor for stuffing. These were useful diversions during the long and rather dull process of smoking the bear meat, but I could tell that the boys were getting bored. I could also see that, just as I had made Jack face his fears, I must now face one of mine. If I wanted my sons to grow into men, I had to give them the opportunity.